everybody. I spoke about Gabriel Tallent, my absolute darling, at the Buzz panel yesterday, a room full of booksellers, and it was wonderful to do so, but I did feel like kind of imbalanced. It's wrong to only speak to the booksellers because I know how important I've seen it, having spoken to you guys in the past, how much influence you have in making books. So I'm really grateful to be able to talk to you about this book. Jordan was talking about waiting 20 years for Nathan Englander's book. I feel like I've been waiting 20 years for Gabriel's book, except I only met him a year and a half ago. As an editor, sometimes it feels like contemporary fiction starts to get sort of organized into these broad categories of style and subject. And when you read a book like this, you realize how exciting it is to come across something that just feels like nothing else. My Absolute Darling is so remarkable. I really feel that I must walk you through every single heart and throat scene in the book, but I know that I don't have time to do that. So I'm going to start with a blurb I received for the book. I want to start by saying Gabriel, for all of his incredible talents and merits, did not arrive in my office with a list of writer friends. He certainly doesn't know Stephen King. I don't know Stephen King. We don't publish Stephen King, but I received this email, and it was from a completely unfamiliar address, and the subject line was "From Steve King." And this is what he said, because Gabriel won't be able to say this to you, but I can. He wrote, "There are books we like well enough to recommend, but there are very few: To Kill a Mockingbird, Catch-22, The Things They Carried, that we remember forever. To my own shortlist, I can now add My Absolute Darling by Gabriel Tallent. 14-year-old Turtle Alveston is a brilliantly rendered creation, and her father is the most terrifying, believable human monster. This book is ugly, beautiful, horrifying, and uplifting. The word masterpiece has been cheapened by too many blurbs, but My Absolute Darling absolutely is one." Right? This is not your average debut novel, and Gabriel is not your average young novelist. This is one of the truest examples I have seen of a book that it is at once a literary and commercial marvel. It's a book that you don't just read, you live inside. Reader after reader have compared it to iconic classics that have nothing in common with the book except for the fact that they all feel like books that matter, that are going to last. His nature writing alone is enough to put him on the map, but the novel as a whole is just extraordinary. And it's not just Stephen King and I who think so. The response from the larger literary community has been extraordinary, and I can't wait for you guys to become a part of this. There are lots of other incredible writers like Celeste Ng and Phil Cly and Kevin Powers have also fallen in love with this book. And I can just say, for me, reading this book was not just immersive. It did not just consume me. It renewed my faith in the transformative power of reading. And after you meet Gabriel, I think that you will want to give yourself that experience too.
I am so nervous. I've never done this before. I've only spoken to people, like telling them about the wine list, but to my terrified horror, I'm not sure what's on it. I just feel like I've come to work and can't even remember. All right, my name is Gabriel Tallent. I'm the author, as Sarah said, of My Absolute Darling, and it is my very great honor to be here, which is one of the reasons I'm so terrified to find myself in the company of such amazing writers and such amazing people. I'm really hoping not to mess this up. I grew up in Mendocino, California, went to Willamette University in Salem, Oregon, and spent... I love that library. I learned to spend time alone at that library. And spent 2 years as a crew leader for Northwest Youth Corps. Then I moved to Utah, where I worked in restaurants and ski launches while writing this book. That's a surprise to some people who read this book, but I love Utah. I'm not sure these outlines are very evocative. I get a lot of people who are just like, how did you do this? And so I just want to say a few things about my childhood. I spent it largely searching after things. I was always kind of grubbing inexpertly through tide pools after eels and dangerously exploring sea caves against a rising tide in peril of my tiny life. and sort of hoofing it through the rest of the redwoods, always running out of water or food. I always dreamed of finding the tarantulas believed to have escaped from crates of bananas shipped to my local anarchist food co-op. This was a story I was told as a child by a very intimidating, lesbian trucker who delivered the bananas. And I believed them to be residing somewhere in one of the warmer areas of Mendocino. And I searched for carnivorous orchids and bogs along the Albion Ridge that my biology teacher had told me that were there, and I've since read about them in botany textbooks, but I never found them. Sort of always in search. But those are not my only adventures. I had another kind of adventure, which is that after school and during the summer, I'd go down to the Mendocino Community Library. The library was in this wonderful sort of out-of-the-way corner of the town. It's not that out of the way, but it's a very small town. So that just walking beneath the, am I too loud? I sound Titanic to myself. So that just sort of walking there was this tremendous, exciting pleasure, wandering beneath the great big Monterey cypresses, and in the roots beneath the cypresses, I could sometimes find California slender salamanders, and in the field across from it, you could find garter snakes. I was a child very excited about nature. And I'm telling you a little bit about my childhood because I wrote this novel from a sense of unquenchable, implacable, keep-you-up-at-night loss. When I left Mendocino and was out in the world working, I would wake from dreams of my childhood, this childhood spent among creeks and forests, and I'd wake while it was still dark, sometimes just in the middle of the night, and I would begin writing then urgently about the places we are losing. I have these memories of being really young and catching frogs for the other kids at school. There was a kind of a grassy pond out back of the school, and I'd bring the frogs back, cupped in my palm very carefully, and show the other kids. And it was this sort of amazing feeling to display a small, wondrous living thing, because not everyone had the patience to go catch frogs, but everyone was interested, and it always felt like a miracle. It felt like we were seeing something tiny and miraculous, and I remember that feeling of just seeing it and the surprise. And part of what I wanted to do about this book was to recapture that feeling, was to kind of bring back for you what I think is so important and alive about the American Northwest. Environmental destruction occurs on a scope and scale difficult for us to comprehend, and so sometimes we do not feel the urgency. Global warming, if we are to solve it, becomes a problem of imagination. Now, this is not a nonfiction book, this is a novel, but I wanted to infuse the novel with things that I love and with things that I care about, because I think we should care deeply about the novels we read. I think that's when they become important to us. And I think as much as we have this problem vividly understanding the natural world and looking at it anew and keeping it in sight, I think we have the same problem taking women's experiences in society seriously. In the world as I have observed it, plenty of men feel entitled, and I feel weird as speaking to a room largely full of women as a man up here being you may not have noticed this. I have this surprising news for you. I've seen this thing, sexism. But a lot of men feel entitled to women's attentions and to their bodies, and some men just stand up and talk to women and don't give them any room in to the conversation. And I feel like that's similar to the way that we as a culture sometimes take for granted the earth, and sometimes we have this terribly destructive relationship to it, and it's because we don't sort of grant it the importance that it should have. And so it made sense to me to bring these subjects together. The violence done to women and girls in stories, I think, often has a cinematic, inconsequential feel that troubles me, and the pain, the suffering that we see in these stories does not seem as urgent or as real as our own. It has a lot of symbolic use. It's used for plot. And that kind of figures it as secondary. It figures it as less important. And maybe that's true of everyone. Maybe in our current moment, we are all encouraged to see ourselves as the protagonists in our own life, and everyone else is sort of the flat characters that fill out our journey to greatness. But I think it's a terribly lonely, isolated, destructive, hurtful, violent way to live, and I wanted to help you see it the way I see it. I wanted you to see the loneliness of this, because I think we can lose track of it. These seem to me the two most meaningful things in our lives: other people and the natural world, and yet we're destroying these things because we fail to take care of them. Perhaps because they are so meaningful, we consume them to the point of extinguishing them. And I wanted to persuade you urgently of the need of taking care. And that's why I wrote Turtle Alveston. She's a teenage girl, tough as nails, and she's like us. She wants to chart the best course through her life. She wants to do the right thing, and she doesn't know how. She's a roamer, an adventurer, a sort of wanderer through the woods, and not a helpless child, but a person of tremendous personal resources, ferocious and creative, a dead shot. She lives alone with her father up on this hill in their ancestral home. And he's this very impressive man, brilliant and charismatic, voluble on the problems of ethics and of philosophy, and at times very caring, but day by day he is killing his daughter. He cannot help himself because hurting her salves some wound inside of him. But the damage done to Turtle is to her inscrutable. Look, he doesn't take her seriously as a person, and that pits the part of her that wants to see herself as a person against the part of her that loves her parent. She's divided within herself. Through all of this adversity, through each clash between father and daughter, I wanted her strength and her dignity to burn through the page. I wanted to write her so that the damage and the hurt we do to women would appear to you as it appears to me, real and urgent and intolerable. And again, irony. And I wanted to show you, through Turtle's eyes, these creeks and forests and tide pools that we are losing every day. And I wanted to show you the meaning. I wanted to show this world that is worth saving, just as Turtle is worth saving. Here today, I'm supposed to give you some sense of this book. I, as some of the other authors, struggle with this. But here's my sense of it. I wanted to write about a girl, Turtle Alveston, who would make you care more deeply, who would make you take the other people in your life more seriously, and who would make you feel the natural world more vividly, more urgently. I wanted to write a novel that would help you take a little bit more care. And I want to say also that I owe a huge debt to the libraries in my life, the libraries that made this writing possible. The Mendocino Community Library, the Fort Bragg Library, the library at my university. These were the places where I trained myself to work. Teachers give us a lot of critical thinking skills, and it's true that I learned a lot at university. But I think only we can teach ourselves the patience and the endurance and the hard work to write a novel, and also the patience and the endurance and the hard work and the independence it takes to think about these issues. And for that, we need a library. We need a place to go and work, a place to sit. And that's also, by the way, how I met my wife. All the desks at the library was full, and she was there sitting alone with her cat-eye glasses. And I thought, hey, that girl's kind of cute. I'll buy her a hot chocolate and see how that goes over. So I guess I'm here to say thank you to all of the librarians who keep the lights on for projects like this one and for Young Love. I don't remember everyone who helped me out, but I remember a few. The librarian at my middle school, inexhaustibly knowledgeable about Mendocino's history. She walked with a limp, probably the fallout of some exciting childhood misadventure like piratically boarding a ship. That's what I always imagined. And she always made me feel like really special, you know. Whenever I came up and talked to her, she always like beamed at me, you know. And maybe she gave everyone that feeling, but I felt welcomed. I felt like, oh, I belong here. At a desk, sort of with books stacked all around me, writing, and that was transformative to me. That experience of being welcomed into this place of looking for books. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for being here, for hearing me speak, and for keeping these wonderful places that have meant so much to like so many great people.